Good evening. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Montclair Township Housing Commission. Notice of this meeting has been posted on the township website as well as published in the Montclair Times. And it's being conducted in conformance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act. First thing is roll call. Can you hear me? Those of you? Okay.
Yep.
Good. Chair Castle.
Present.
All right. Mr. Simon.
Here.
Ms. Williams. I think she said she had a conflict. Ms. McNeil. Mr. Cohen. Mr. Scott.
Here.
And Ms. Kata.
Here.
Did I pronounce your last name right? Kata or Kata?
Yes.
Okay.
You said it right the first time.
Okay. We also have Megan York, the administrative agent for our all of our affordable housing programs. And we have Hussein Farwa, who is the assistant planner, and I'm Janice Talley, the director of planning.
So today we have.
You want to go? Just want to get through the minutes.
Oh, yes.
Get the minutes done. I have minutes from the February 28th meeting.
Yes. And then minutes from March.
I didn't do the minutes from
From
the March meeting. We didn't do the minutes. That was.
Because we would have the eight.
I could just do a one paragraph on that. There was no action.
Perfect.
But I
Okay.
just need, if there are any changes to the minutes on February 28th. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. That's it for the.
Okay. So we're gonna move on to our business for tonight. And tonight we have our friends from Rutgers University who will be presenting some of the findings that they did over the course of the 6 weeks. 12, okay. Don't skip that one. Last 12 weeks, and they're going to present their findings to the commission and all our visitors. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. So James, do you have
I have the PowerPoint. Do you want me to, I'll bring it up on the
Yes,
screen
please.
and share it with everybody online.
Right, do you guys want to introduce yourselves and just?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. That'd be awesome.
I'll let someone share.
I think we'll introduce ourselves individually at the end.
Oh, okay.
There's a little delay.
Okay.
Okay. So I think we have microphones
so-
that can capture you.
Oh,
Okay, great. Yeah, so we're Rutgers master's students. I think we're all getting our MCRP. Yep. And are we all graduating? Or some of us are graduating. And our professor is James Philbus. Oh, he's here.
Sorry, I'm so late. 15 minutes late.
I was just doing. the
Sorry,
intro.
you got it, Alex.
Okay,
So sorry.
that's our professor. And yeah, I think it's we were just happy to do this. We want to thank Montclair for giving us this opportunity and talk to you about what we found. For the next slide, or
Maybe you should just, what was the assignment? What were you evaluating?
oh yeah, so we understood that Montclair is interested in affordable housing, obviously, but wanted to look specifically at two town-owned lots, one at Wildwood and one at Industry. And so we want to first, we looked at what could affordable housing look like there? And then we also looked at, just in general, what's affordable housing like in Montclair? And, what's helping or what's preventing more affordable housing getting built?
And the last time this was systematically evaluated was 2004, right? So
And then
And
there's
then
some
updated in
and updated in
2009.
2009.
Yeah.
So this is like, it's been 15 years since the last analysis. So it's kind of an update to that. So we can have a big inventory of.
And so just a rundown of what we're going to be talking about. We're just going to talk a little bit of the background of what we found about Montclair and how it's changed in the past couple of decades. We're going to talk about our housing needs assessment that we've prepared for you. We're going to look at policies that you've enacted since 2004, how, what they've been doing, and then we're going to recommend maybe improvements to those policies. And then we're going to also recommend additional policies that we think may help you pursue further development of affordable housing. And then we'll present potential site plans that we came up with that you may consider at Wildwood and at New Street. And you can hit the next one, yeah.
So you're going to see a lot of maps like this. This first one just shows every affordable housing property in Montclair by a number of units. As you can see, units are heavily concentrated around Bay Street Station, which is around here, with a mix of different affordable housing types. If you go to the next slide, you can see that in more detail. So this shows affordable housing properties by size and by affordable housing type. You can see some are traditional, kind of federally subsidized, while some come from the newer inclusionary development policy, and others are built by Montclair's own nonprofit Home Corps. You can also see a concentration of inclusionary developments around the Bay Street area, Bloomfield redevelopment area that we mentioned before. And if you go to the next slide, you can see that this shows every property by the year it came online. So it could be like the year when the deed restriction started, not the year necessarily it was built. And you can also notice that the newer properties are the ones that are kind of surrounding Bloomfield Avenue and Bay Street in that redevelopment area. So in general, there's a trend toward development around Bloomfield Avenue and toward inclusionary development.
And then we wanted to look at what housing costs have looked like in Montclair. So we first looked at Zillow and how the home value index has changed since this shows since 2016. The red line shows New Jersey, the orange line shows Essex County, and the green shows Montclair. So you can see that while they're following the same trend, home values in New Jersey are in Montclair are kind of outpacing the county and the state. And then this is also showing March 2020. So that's around when the COVID pandemic started. And so the home value index increased by 49% between March 2020 and March 2024. So it's a nominal value, but kind of get an idea of how quickly that's increasing in that short period of time. And then using data from HUD, we looked at, they estimated how many owners are cost burdened in 2020. And so cost burden means that they're spending more than 30% of their income on housing costs. We found that about 28% of homeowner households are cost burdened, and 13% are severely cost burdened, which means they're spending over 50% of their income on housing costs.
And that's homeowners and not renters.
This is
that
homeowners,
right?
yeah.
Homeowners,
Yeah.
wow.
Well,
Yeah.
and this is, renters is next.
Yeah. And you go to the next slide.
But I have a question. So is that for, you said, is Montclair outpacing Essex County and that burden? Not in. Yeah.
We don't know about the burden per se, but you can see that the price of homes, ownership is.
Even if you go back a few decades, Montclair was outpacing the county, Essex County anyway. So is Montclair growing at the same rate as Essex County?
No.
It's still outpacing it far, okay.
the lines were moving relatively parallel to each other, up until you get to COVID, and you can see that sort of jump happening right there.
It starts to jump.
When the parallel lines cease to be really parallel, and Montclair accelerates much more rapidly.
Do we know how, is it 2 times faster? Is it?
I mean, we could sort of tell you, I mean, we haven't done that,
Okay.
but we can, that's an easy sort of, estimate.
We can put that in the report.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But when you say they're cost burden, is that at the cost that the homes were purchased or based on?
So HUD defines cost burden as if you're spending 30% of your income on housing costs. So
Right,
that,
but is that housing costs, present day housing costs, or the individual owner's housing costs?
so it's like your mortgage payment.
I understand. All that I'm saying is, so we know that the costs have gone up, that the housing prices have gone up. But if I bought a house in 1980 and still own it, my costs may not have proportionally gone up. If I need to buy, it's gone up.
Mhm.
This is all current owners, regardless, among all current owners, regardless of when they purchased their home.
Okay, fine.
Now, we should say though, and the reason why in the housing needs assessment, we don't rely on HUD's CHAS data is because HUD doesn't update the CHAS data regularly. The
Okay.
most recent CHAS analysis from HUD was 2020,
Mhm.
and what we're going to be showing you is how to use the American Community Survey data that comes out every year to do this on your own and update it on your own without waiting every 5 or 6 years for HUD to kind of do their analysis.
Good point. Next slide.
That's fine. That's better. So then we looked at rent burden. So, the burden on renters, we found that about 40% of renters in Montclair are cost burdened, with rent, and almost 1 out of every 4 are severely cost burdened. So, even greater numbers for renters than owners.
And this again is based on 2020.
So this is data collected from 2016 to 2020. This is the most up-to-date that HUD has available. And then, you can go.
So the next few slides are going to show you data collected from 3 consecutive American Community Surveys, 2012, 2017, and 2022. This one shows median gross rent by census tract. It's adjusted. This is all in 2022 dollars. So you can see across the board that rent in pretty much every census tract has increased. It's gone up at least 1 or 2 quantiles, with the exception of a few census tracts for which we do not have data. So that's been quite dramatic. Next slide.
So I guess the gray areas, you don't have data for the.
Yeah, so often there's just not enough people like renting in the census tract for them to come up with any kind of reliable estimate. So they just don't give you a number. This shows household median income by census tract. Again, the general trend is that, and again, it's adjusted for, this is all in 2022 dollars. Every census tract is getting wealthier on average or by median, and especially in the 3rd and 4th wards, you can see that the household median income has gone up by at least a few quantiles, aka it's gentrifying.
I
Next slide.
can't see that far, so are those the salaries?
This is household median income. Yeah, so how much, whether it's a 1-person, 2-person, 3-person household, that would be their household income, and then the median is in the middle of how much everyone in that census tract is, every household in that census tract is
And then
paying.
the changing of the demographics, obviously higher income folks are moving into those areas, so.
That's what this seems to show.
Exactly.
Yeah, so this is 3rd and 4th ward here. This has gone up, between, so this was the lowest quantile, and now this has gone up to the next quantile. This went up also 1 quantile. This one went up 3 quantiles, right? So the census tract used to be 80 to 130, now it's in the 170 to 260.
Now, does that measure with whether incomes are actually going up? So what you're saying is that the people who are living in the third and fourth wards, incomes are higher than they were in 2012.
The median
The
income, yeah.
median income is higher.
Yeah.
But it
But
doesn't
that
show
doesn't
displacement.
mean-
It doesn't
that's
show
right.
displacement.
That's what I'm trying to
Right.
get.
So,
It does not
wait
show
until you see the next
displacement.
slide.
Okay.
Yeah, wait for the next
That's the
slide.
next slide.
Yeah, well, yes, so, the other thing is that Montclair is losing its Black population. This is shown quite dramatically in these three, maps. Again, in the third and fourth ward, you see it going down several quantiles. So for example, these census tracts used to be 60 to 90, these are now 40 to 60. It's the same story with these over here. So in general, you know, we could make a very strong hypothesis that the overall increase in median income is due to new people coming in. And
So
that
overall,
is
what is
leaving.
the decrease in income, let's say from 2012 to 2022? Like, is it 30%, 20%? What is it?
Oh, overall, for all of Montclair?
For, let's just say the third and fourth ward in terms of the loss of Black population.
Oh, so it's hard to align census tracts with wards. Unfortunately, they don't match up perfectly. But we could try to come up with an estimate for that. I mean, all I can tell you is that, you know.
So over a 10-year period, it would be interesting to me.
Yeah,
I think,
totally.
For you to see, you know, the Black population was X and now it's Y and there's this percentage.
Shannon, we had that information, don't we? Yeah, we
Is
had
that
that,
easy
we
to
had,
extract?
yeah, Shannon has that.
Extrapolate?
Shannon has
You
that.
have that.
I just can't quote it to you right now.
Yeah, but,
Tables of data, and I'm sure you also have background
Yeah.
tables that support your.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
that would be
Yeah.
very helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a significant decline in Black population, but there's also a fairly significant increase in mixed racial marriages.
Right, and
So-
also
so
in
we-
the
so we-
Asian community
Yeah.
and in the Latin community as well.
Yeah.
So,
Next slide.
Now, I'll talk a little bit about the housing needs assessment. Next slide. So first, we wanted to look at vacancy. It's kind of like a first quick glance to see, you know, what's impacting prices. And so this is looking at vacancy in rental units and the homeowner units. And you can kind of see here that in Essex and in New Jersey, rental vacancies are getting tighter, so the rental market's getting tighter. In Montclair, it got a little looser, possibly between 2017 and 2022. We think, so this is, again, it's data collected over 5 years. So we think this could be because of new developments getting built. They're slowly starting to fill up. So, you know, this might not, you know, continue to, you know, loosen if development doesn't keep happening and, you know, new apartments aren't added. And then with homeowner vacancy, you know, we found this pretty stark that, you know, again, the housing market is getting tighter for owners in New Jersey and Essex County, but it's incredibly tight for owners in Montclair. And so what that might also suggest too is that you might have people who are renting who want to be owners and they just can't find a home to purchase in Montclair. And so that could be impacting prices both in homeowners and in rentals. And so just a quick talk about the data we use. We use, again, like I said, the American Community Survey, the 5-year data. And we looked at a couple other sources, but when we looked at affordability, again, like I mentioned earlier, with the cost burden, we use 30% of household income to define affordability. And we'll have further details on the process and replication to do this in the report, but we'll just tell you like our key findings essentially. And I just wanted to credit Kirk McClure. This is his method that he kind of published and that we've kind of borrowed here, and it's kind of like a back of the napkin. And I just wanted to credit him here.
Nice mustache.
You need to.
And so we did this for rental data, and basically we grouped households into income brackets. and we also grouped rent prices together, and we looked at how many rental units were being offered that could be affordable for each income group. And so we estimate, so it's estimation based off an estimation, but we estimate that Montclair lacks 1,259 rental units for households who make less than $50,000 in the municipality. And so what this chart is kind of telling us is that over here, there's just not enough homes, rental units for folks not making, more than $50,000. And they're probably renting $50,000 to $75,000 because there's a huge lot here, which is a lot probably coming, from, this is like the affordable housing you've been able to build, but, affordable housing in Montclair is usually around here because the area median income is like 120, 130,000 roughly. So, when you build, yeah.
Can I just remind everyone that HUD, when they did their analysis, found that 1,280 renting households were severely cost burdened. And so HUD's looking at the housing, data for Montclair and came up with a number that was 21 households different from our estimate. And so that's a pretty good reinforcement.
So 50,000 is roughly about 40% of area median income.
Yeah.
Yeah, roughly,
That's right.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so, okay.
And so,
That, one more thing, that spike that you see from 50 to 75, those are the affordable units that are affordable at 50 to 60% of AMI, right?
50, 60.
And that is gonna be more expensive than a very sizable part of the Montclair population can afford.
Right.
So even the affordable units, you're saying, are more expensive than most
Yeah.
low-income people can afford, that's what you're saying, wow.
Oh, Harold has a question.
Harold?
Hi. Just related to this in a previous slide, there is definitely a reduction in Black households in Montclair. Is there any data, census or AHS, or any data that shows the income ranges of Black households? Displacement is actually a race neutral term, and so you could have more affluent Black households moving into the community and displacing less affluent Black households. So if you're seeing a not as rapid a decrease in Black households, that doesn't mean that the income hasn't diverged. So is there any data that could, any crosstab that
Sure.
you could include?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, we can include that in the report. It's not difficult to, to sort of disaggregate the ACS data and have the household income by race and include that in the report. That's pretty straightforward, sure.
Mhm.
Right, because I think
but
those are both issues that need to be
Right.
addressed.
But the overall Black population is going down. I
Exactly.
mean, I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah, absolutely.
The overall Black population is going down.
Yes.
So that's not- okay.
But you just looked at the third and fourth, what about the first and second, is that going up, or is it just across all of Montclair?
You can go back to the maps and see. I think it's pretty much across the board.
That's where it's going to start with concentrate.
yeah,
Right.
our maps, I think our maps,
Yeah, so these are, so basically everywhere is becoming less Black, right? So the yellow is 0 to 20% Black. So more yellow census tracts means less Black. And this is the most heavily Black census tract. By 2022, we have no purple census tract. So it is across the board, yeah.
So in all 4 wards, there's fewer Black people.
Yeah.
Now, did you figure out something that Alan brought up, the Latin and the Asian communities, because that seems to be growing here?
I think it is. I mean, so one thing we noticed and why we didn't use the percent white map is because it actually became less white up here. And that's likely due to influx of Asian and Hispanic.
But could you show that growth?
Sure, yeah.
Sure.
I mean, we could do this for every census ethnic group. Yeah.
We thought we had like 25 minutes.
Like, put all the
We're trying to highlight this.
So you have all the time you need.
Yeah. Okay, great, yeah.
You get to the right slide.
So is Montclair becoming more white or is it becoming more diverse?
Its diversity is changing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The composition of our, it's not becoming more white,
Yeah.
as you said, it's just the composition.
Yeah, I think, yeah, this kind of the story there, at least my opinion, is just that gentrification is happening, people are being displaced. So, you know, the diversity is changing. But it's pretty
Diversity
undeniable.
by race, but probably by income, it's becoming less diverse.
Yeah, that's very true.
Exactly. Okay.
Sure. Okay, so quickly, I mean, I'm sure you are all in this room even more familiar now than we are with the current policies that you've already enacted. So I'll go through these just a little quickly. So overview. So first, we have inclusionary zoning. This is a map that Lauren, you put together.
I don't know why it's like that. I have it.
I think it's like the graphic covered the.
Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps, but again, this is
Oh,
a map.
yeah.
You can go to the next slide.
Okay.
So just, yeah, an overview of the regulation. It's obviously been in place for almost 20 years now in Montclair. The main purpose here was to capture the value in new development in Montclair's housing market for low-income residents. The main, I mean, it's a very thorough regulation, but the main 2 points are that at least 20% of the total number of units within developments that are at least 5 units must be affordable, and within those, half have to be low income, and then there are specific requirements based on bedroom distribution, all of that, but that's the most important thing to know about inclusionary zoning. You can go to the next one. And then rent control, much more recent. So we were able to speak to members of the planning board, and they actually sent us all of the units that have been registered under rent control, and Lauren was to get
me the rent control board.
the rent control board, yeah,
Yeah.
the rent control, yes. So they mapped it out. So again, this is much more recent. So whereas inclusionary zoning is really focused on these new developments that are going up, or rent control is really about stabilizing the rental market, which, as we've seen, has been skyrocketing. And because of a state law in New Jersey, this basically only applies to buildings that are 30 years old or so or older. So it's really not about new buildings, but it's about stabilizing rents. And the main kind of crux of this legislation is that landlords can only raise rents by 4%, and there's a lower cap of 2.5% for units for senior units, basically. And then I did want to note, because I will be talking about it later, that as part of the ordinance, there's a vacancy decontrol provision, which allows landlords to raise rents without any caps on percentage increases once every 5 years after an apartment's vacant. So wanted to note that. Next slide.
So technically, an apartment, a unit that had been under rent control and let's say was, I don't know, $1,200 a month, could, after 5 years, get to market rate of $3,000 a month. And then once it's rented again, would be under rent control.
Yeah, so it's still under rent control, but it's just every 5 years that this is allowed. So, you know, after 5 years,
Whether it's
you
empty
double
or
it.
not.
Yeah.
No, it has to be empty. It has to be empty, but once someone moves out. Yeah. and then you can wait another 5 years and then.
So in 5 years, a person is renting,
Mhm.
then they leave, then that landlord or developer can then raise it to market rate.
Exactly.
So then you lose the, right.
But then
You're
it's
spoiling
not-
my recommendations.
But then. But then it's locked, they're locked into that rent, that new rental rate, right?
Until it becomes vacant again.
Yeah.
So may I just add something? Hi, this is Deirdre. So what happens is once the vacancy decontrol does occur, then within that 5 year abide by that either 2.5% or 4% increase until such time the property becomes vacant again.
Right, so they can bide their time, just kind of, the 4%, but then as soon as 5 years go by and it becomes vacant again, you know, raise it again, so.
Yeah, if you want to go to the next.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, let's talk some views.
Next slide.
All right, so another noticeable policy that was put in place in Montclair is the ADU ordinance. So very briefly, ADUs are small residents that can be built on the same lot as a single family home or a two family home. This was passed in 2023, and I'll just point out three important components of this ordinance. It's so only one ADU can be built per lot. Each ADU must have at least one off-street parking spot, and the property owner must live in either the ADU or the primary dwelling unit on that property. Yep.
Next slide.
Okay, and so Montclair Gateway to Aging in Place recently posted an ADU design competition, and we looked at designs and we thought this is a good way to show how Montclair can incorporate ADUs into existing neighborhoods. And so this picture is just an example from someone who submitted an entry into that competition. So just a sense of what ADUs could look like.
And that's a zoning compliance ADU.
Okay, you can go to the next slide.
Here's the
There we
good part.
go.
All right. So yes, we did want to, give recommendations on how to consider improving them. These are all just to consider. Some of them even contradict each other. So I'm not saying do all of them, but just some things to consider. So first of all, with the inclusionary zoning, you could consider increasing the on-site set aside. So currently it's 20%, for example, but San Francisco, for example, recently changed their inclusionary zoning ordinance to make it 25%. So, just depending on, the market and the housing needs that we put together, a consideration to increase that set aside potentially. The second suggestion is expanding the inclusionary zoning zones. So we did notice that C3 or central business was not one of the ones included in inclusionary zoning, which we thought was kind of interesting because
That was an oversight.
yeah, that must be an oversight because there are obviously going to be like mixed use buildings along commercial arteries. Like I noticed Glenridge Avenue is C3, so maybe that could be included there. The third suggestion is creating an exclusive marketing window for Montclair residents. This is actually something that Newark passed very recently. So for the first 90 days that new affordable units go on the market, only Newark residents are able to apply for them. So we think that would be great for, the displacement and gentrification issue that potentially people who are getting priced out would be able to have first dibs basically on the new affordable units. And then after that,
We do have in our ordinance, Montclair preference.
Right.
We didn't discuss that when we got our spending plan approved and all our implementation ordinance was approved by the judge in 2018. He allowed us to have a local preference. So we have a waiting list
okay.
and
You have to be careful about that because it is subject to fair housing laws. I mean,
Mhm.
And then the
Judge
southern,
signed off on ours.
yeah, no, I know, but a lot of municipalities love local presidents
Yeah.
because that town is dominantly white. And if you use a local preference, you're going to keep it white.
but the other side of that, now, if a
Yes.
developer uses any federal funding or that development, then the region comes in.
Yeah.
And Montclair is a part of a region of 100 towns. So then the, residents of those 100 towns have an option for that housing that's being built in Montclair.
Right. Yeah, in our longer report, I mean, we'll look into in more detail about how Newark maybe crafted it to see how they maybe bypass some of these sensitivities perhaps, maybe by calling it a marketing window.
I think
Yeah, it's a target, you can have targeting, but you can't have exclusion.
Part of it too is if Montclair had done it sooner and it was had more African Americans in the town, but now we're already whiter, now we have a problem of keeping it that way.
Yeah.
But that's not the intent. There's Newark is more diverse. So we're in fact keeping out Newark residents with the ordinance, which is where.
Right.
Yeah.
Although you have people demanding that it be reserved for Montclair residents. You know?
No, I'm not saying on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there's problems, for example, in New York City, where you have concentrations, one race or another, you have those regional preferences, and that tends to keep people
Right.
out of certain neighborhoods.
Another, as we were researching and seeing how other places around the country do inclusionary zoning, there is an interesting sliding scale mechanism that a town in Washington called Sammamish, I believe I'm pronouncing it correctly, does, where basically the minimum quantity of affordable units is based on the affordability level of the provided units. So for example, if all of the affordable units are set aside for low income, there may only be a 15%, minimum set aside requirement. But if it's moderate, it might be raised to 30%. So just something to consider as, what the market demands are in a housing needs assessment. Other things.
Our effort right now is to have a mixture, is that correct?
Yeah.
To have both, to have very low, moderate,
We
moderate.
mimic what the state requirement is, which is
13%
very low. And
37%
low, and then the rest be moderate.
Yeah. Just something to, because since we saw that the people who make 50% or less of AMI are really.
Although I haven't read the proposed regulations to see if they change those. So
And there's also one project that we're looking at that has a significant portion from 80 to 120.
Yeah.
Yep. And then that was the other point about reevaluating affordability level, just based on the market demand, maybe just tweaking that. And then the last suggestion on inclusionary zoning, you've probably heard about density bonuses and other kinds of incentives for developers who might, overachieve on how many affordable units they want to do. Maybe, giving them some more incentives, like maybe they can build higher.
Don't talk to us about density.
Oh, all right. These are
46 and 46.
In this room, we can talk about it, but once we get out of this room.
You're absolutely right.
Right.
Density bonuses are an excellent way to get additional.
They are excellent. We love density bonuses,
Yeah,
but in this room.
And reevaluate affordability levels, what does that mean?
So that's kind of what we were talking about with, we were talking about the sliding scale, but maybe tweaking like the requirement for certain AMI levels versus others, just maybe to hit or to allow lower income.
All very good points.
Can I just jump in really quickly? Like one of the things about market prices going up so much, the capacity to internally cross-subsidize the affordable units and make them more deeply affordable becomes greater because what the market rate units are getting is so much greater than what it used to be. And so the internal cross subsidy can therefore be more substantial and therefore you can get to a deeper AMI.
Yep.
Sorry, Nate.
Oh, yeah. Although I think developers might argue because
Of course they would.
interest rate, the interest rates, but yes.
I think this is your last slide.
About this, yeah, you can go to this slide. Oh, it's not this.
I think, is this the last one?
Oh,
So William has something to say?
oh,
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
Unless there's another one.
when you talk about cross subsidies.
Oh, we have many more slides.
Yeah.
yeah, we have a lot more slides.
You're going the wrong way.
I'm going the wrong way.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay, I don't know why, I was going, yep,
Yeah,
inclusionary
there.
zoning, rent control,
Okay,
my fault.
so.
Error.
Yeah, there's a comment here.
Oh, sure.
When you talk about cross subsidies, and I'm just thinking in terms of Section 8. Section 8 has a problem subsidizing the rents because they're so high from the market rate standpoint. They can't provide enough subsidy to give the individuals enough units. Now, there's an option at local level and state level to increase those subsidies, but they're very reluctant to do that. They don't do it in a timely manner. So, we kind of had this conversation at the forum we had last week, because if there's no movement in increasing those subsidies, you're at a loss, and you're just not going to get there. And with the purpose of the rent control was to stabilize the market. Okay, but we've got to come up with some money to put people in these units. And even when we talk about workforce housing, who's going to subsidize that in between amount of money between workforce housing and market rate? Okay, forget about the affordable. So there's a financial challenge there. Where we're going to come up with these subsidies.
At least with Lackawanna Plaza, it is practice that the developer pays those subsidies.
If that stays in.
Right, in its current form.
Okay, yes.
Well, I guess something like density bonuses or other incentives would kind of. So now on to rent control suggestions. We were kind of talking about this before, but the vacancy decontrol provision definitely concerned us, because as we talked about before, every 5 years there's a vacancy. Developers can just jack up the prices. So we would recommend at least putting some kind of percent cap on that, like still making it every 5 years or whatever, but trying to cap that.
I thought it was 15%. I thought it was 15%.
It is, yeah, it's capped.
It is?
15%.
Okay. That helps. And if somebody subleases their apartment, if somebody has a apartment that is very affordable under rent control, sublease it, and avoid that rent increase, the vacancy decontrol provision. I'm just thinking about
the registration process.
Yeah, that's the
I mean,
issue.
if once it's registered with that current tenant, okay, that tenant is in there for 12 months or whatever the case is, and then they have to, landlord has to re-register every year, okay, and indicate what his increases have been according to the ordinance. So subleasing, you have to do some funny business, but I don't think you can pretty much get around.
I just know of the
Anything
rent
is
control
possible.
apartments in New York City that can hand it down from, parents to children.
Yep.
But that-
They're assets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but rent control is a tiny part of the New York City rental stock. The rent regulated stock, they're only in New York City, only about 25,000 rent controlled units in the city of 8.5 million. The rent stabilized stock is the one that's about 1.1 million units. And that's the much more sizable one, and that's the one that you don't get the intergenerational handoffs. It's the old rent controls, and those have to be continuously occupied by the same household from prior to January 1, 1974, when that law went into effect. So the number of people that are in that is shrinking every year.
It's only
And
part out.
we're now at 50 years.
Literally, it's the children of they were born
Yeah,
and raised.
Yeah, no.
And then we have their children, their grandchildren, so at
Yeah.
some point we're.
I had partners in my law firm who've been there forever and have very controlled apartments.
But that is not.
No,
Right, I just,
no, we don't have that.
Oh, right. So another, so from, so another, when we were looking into the rent control ordinance, we thought it was, I guess, surprising, because I live in New York City, so I expected that you would just be able to like type in your address and see if your apartment is under rent control. That is not the case. It's actually quite difficult to figure out. You have to file an OPRA request to see if your apartment is under rent control. And so I'm not saying, I mean, like, obviously creating a database like New York City would be really difficult. We're not suggesting that, but actually neighboring Bloomfield, we found there is like a published list on the website where you can see all of the units that are under rent control. So, you know, we think that would be empowering to tenants certainly, and recommend that.
But aren't all older apartments right now buildings under rent control?
Right, the tenants have to, or landlords have
They
to
have to
apply.
register them.
So like,
And a lot of people don't know. I think a lot of people just don't have that information.
so
It's.
yeah, it may not be registered. It's like suitable to be registered, but it takes action on their part to register. And so it's not just like automatically.
Is that information confidential, who's on the register?
Well, that's been a decision. Rent control administration office.
That it is confidential, because I could not get that information.
Now, so let's start with the fact that it's a paper system. It's not digital. They're building it from scratch. Why they wanted to reinvent the wheel is beyond me, because we have so many other municipalities that have a digital system that's very automated. So that's something that the town should really start looking at, for bringing that system up to date. For the system. The fact that you have to put an open request in to get the information, a little cumbersome.
That's cumbersome.
Be diplomatic, okay? We are, and I'm a member of the housing, we control board. We're seeking requesting changes to the ordinance. We want to make sure that we're getting the word out for the landlords, that you have to register. Attempting to move to a higher penalty. So that's something.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
yes, yes. I read that news article where they were talking about the $20. Well,
That's a different.
but
Yeah, but we've been at this for a couple of years, moving in the right direction.
Mhm.
Stop the.
And so I just have one more comment. Is it not a given that all apartments in Montclair that are a certain age are under the rent control ordinance, whether they register or not?
No, there's no opt-in sort of scenario. The only thing that I was aware of back several years ago, if you had a two-family house, there was another ordinance that the town did require you to register that unit. This is pre-rent control. Okay, because I've been a property owner for 40+ years. Okay, it was never urged to register. Okay, it wasn't mandatory. Okay, so that was something rent control ordinance. Now, the units that are controlled by the DCA, the Department of Community Affairs, anything from 4 units and above is registered with the state. I think it's 4. 4 or 5, but that is in place. And they do an inspection annually or every 3 years.
Every 5 years.
And they try to get that down to.
So
what the rent control ordinance of Montclair should do is work with that database, okay, and pull information from that, because yes, we have X amount of 2-family and 3-family houses, but it should be more manageable, bringing that information together with what we have from DCA.
I mean, we should have a better list from our tax rolls.
Well, the conversation is, they're trying to work with the tax department to get this information, okay, and to make sure that the property owners are abiding by the ordinance and making sure that they're registered. If they're paying their taxes, we should be able to get to them. Okay,
I think
there's something
a list, a GIS map.
Say that
If
again.
we have a list, we have a GIS map that we can create of every parcel in Montclair that has 3 units or more. We can give you a list of all those properties.
Then you know the universe of who you could
And then you know,
go after.
Well, I'm a member
So
of-
what
Oh, no,
is,
I'm-
you
I'm
said
a
if
member
they're
of
not
the
registered,
administrating should
they're
be
not
having that
obligated
conversation.
to
Yeah, that might be, I think that's a
Scale variable.
issue with this, with the solidization.
Right. So what you're saying is that if a landlord does not register their apartment, their units, then they're not obligated to be under the rent control ordinance?
I don't
Well,
think,
they're in violation.
That's not true.
Okay.
I
They're in violation.
but how do you,
Yeah,
how do we know that we're in violation? You have to start with the existing.
You know what your end is,
Right.
how many you have.
Right.
who's
So what
your
I would do
neighbors.
is I would reach out to all of those property owners and start off, see which ones are, do a compliant, well, this is me.
Yeah.
I do a compliance
They actually have
evaluation.
to, like, just because you have a two-family home doesn't mean you're renting it. So then I don't have to
Well,
register.
two families are exempt.
Are exempt.
And
Two
three.
Or 2 and 3, okay, 2 and 3 families are exempt, so I have
So it
to
starts
do
at
4
4.
or higher.
Well, they're,
Okay.
they're exempt if the landlord lives in the building,
Yeah.
but if you're using it as
right.
investment property or like a pied a terre or whatever, then it should be under rent control. And so I actually spoke to the administrator and other people. And I think that's also the hesitation with, public, just putting the list out, is, so basically they said with like large unit buildings, they don't really have an issue with, publicizing it or anything, and they don't have compliance issues with that. That's not really a problem, but they've had to send letters out basically to these landlords of like 2 and 3 family homes that should be under rent control to figure out if the landlord actually lives there or not. And they haven't really gotten a lot of responses. So I think they're hesitating to, put those out on the internet and kind of like, if they're not sure whether the landlord lives there or not, and if they're actually subject to the ordinance. So I think that's kind of where
They're working.
Yeah, if I may interject, again, this is Deirdre. Mr. Scott and I forum on Wednesday, and I had spoken to the rent control manager as well as Ms. Itmar, and there are efforts underway to notify non-owner occupied 2 and 3 families because they are subject to rent control if the owner does not live in the property. And as Mr. Scott mentioned, it's a new system. They've got a lot of things to figure out. And, I think the forum kind of shed some new light on these very issues that this good report is exposing. So I know that they'll be reaching out to the Housing Commission if needed, and certainly the Rent Control Board.
Are there any recommendations about our zoning laws?
We're gonna get there.
So, the next suggestion, increasing the fines for non-complying landlords. Right now, it's $20 a unit. That's not really inspiring a lot of fear in people's hearts, I think. So raising it would logically get the compliance up. So I know that, a lot of people are already talking about that here. And then the third suggestion, as you're considering, reworking certain parts of the ordinance, some places, in a lot of municipalities that have rent control, they're kind of written similarly to how Montclair does. But for example, in Oakland and in Montgomery County, Maryland, for example, they have this preferential rent and preferential banking idea where basically instead of penalizing landlords for unauthorized rent increases, you actually incentivize them, the landlords who choose not to raise the rent to the maximum allowable amount. We'll have more in our written report about this, but just, an idea of maybe a slightly different way of doing it and kind of beefing it up a little bit. So, yeah, next slide. Wait, other way. All right.
I think I skipped one. I don't know.
Yeah,
Why it's not working the way, the little arrow button, so I gotta use this. I'm going the wrong way. Is this where we are?
Oh, there.
There.
So, go back.
So sorry, my arrows aren't working.
So our understanding is that since in the year that the ordinance has been in effect, only one ADU was permitted in Montclair. And this could be just a story about high interest rates, to be fair, but still only having one permit for ADUs signifies that maybe the ordinance needs to be revised a bit. So we're looking at some possible barriers for building ADUs, from the perspective of a homeowner especially. And so we found that parking spots are definitely a barrier. Just like I said, each ADU is one off-street parking spot. And based on like the latest construction costs, we estimated that a parking spot could be between, $3,000 and $7,000. So it's, a significant amount of money. And we recommend getting rid of the parking requirements for ADUs. And that's something that other places have done, like Seattle got rid of the parking requirement for ADUs and saw an increase in ADU permits. And I think in Princeton, New Jersey, where they have ADUs, they don't require off-street parking depending on the size of the ADU. So that's another thing to consider. Another potential barrier for building ADUs is the owner occupancy requirement. And so during our research, we came across a lot of people arguing that this requirement makes financing ADU more difficult for homeowners. And so we understand, the impulse to have this requirement, but we would argue that if you have concerns about absentee landlords or about maintenance of ADUs, that these be addressed through building codes or other ordinances rather than requiring the homeowner to live on the property. Some additional ideas for increasing the number of ADUs that are permitted. So Montclair could issue a request for information for contractors that could potentially build ADUs and essentially use that information to create a reference list that shows lenders and contractors that can build ADUs and lend to homeowners that want to build ADUs, just to make the process easier for people who aren't professional developers and don't really know exactly how to get started on something like this. And another idea that we sort of threw around was Montclair could potentially use its housing trust fund to offer low market interest rate loans for ADU construction. Obviously, there's a trade-off between how we spend that money, but this is one way to address the fact that interest rates are so high right now.
And what is the cost for constructing ADU?
We have it in the report. I think what we found was that an ADU cost maybe about like $300,000 to construct, but like for a single family home, it could be well over like $500,000.
If I could just interject here, just really quickly. Hi, the cost of an ADU depends on not if it's attached or detached. An attached ADU that doesn't require separate utilities will be much cheaper than a detached ADU that requires separate utilities.
Yep.
Likewise, if you allow for modular construction, it will be much cheaper than having to build from scratch. But that's just my interjection there.
And if I can throw in a 500 square foot ADU is going to cost a lot less than a 900 square foot ADU. So it's like anything, the range, 300,000 is not a bad price, but you could probably get it down with a lot of other municipal assistance, like pre-approved plans, a whole bunch of things. We won't go into them here, but you can get the cost down, and there could be more modest ADUs. And there are other ways of supportive financing.
Janet, can I ask you a question?
That's the wrong way.
Janet?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. Since we've only approved one ADU.
We're missing a slide.
Is it?
How many applications actually were requested?
How many well, let me say, I think we were up to 2 ADUs at the
It's a 100% increase.
But the honest truth is, our zoning officer probably spends a quarter of his day talking to people about ADUs. So there's a lot of
Interesting.
interest. But if you understand, there's also a lot of complexity, because in Montclair, we don't have large properties, and you have, each one has to be tailor-made, fit on its property without creating a variance. People want to put a 2-story ADU. No, it has to be 1 story. So people want to put one that's bigger than it's permitted. So there's a lot of hurdles before people can actually get to design. And then honestly, they need an architect. There's upfront costs. So
I'll also add that oftentimes a lot of people want to transform a shed or something like that into an ADU. But oftentimes that shed, which is filled with junk that maybe you use once a year, is considered a parking spot. And so now when you're
Right.
transforming that shed into an ADU, you are required to build a parking spot for that ADU, but now you have to build another parking spot because you're eliminating that first parking spot. And so, that's another barrier that,
It's a good point that.
It's preventing the
Usually it's garages that.
Yeah, garages.
That are converted.
but it could be a shed, yeah.
Yeah, and so,
So, you have a question before we move on?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw in, we have an ADU ordinance, but it really is the first step. And the next steps include a lot of community education, more, as some of these recommendations said, just a whole package of things that many municipalities do around the country to support the growth of ADUs, even separate from giving them money, but a whole lot of things that could reduce the soft cost and reduce the overall cost. And, you don't want your zoning officer spending, 2 days a month talking to about ADUs with people who don't know anything about it. So if there's a potential here in town for it, it does require some fairly low cost but intentional work to get information out to the community.
Do we have any provisions that, one concern I would have in using an ADU is that it opens my present assessment of my primary home up to reassessment. Do we have anything that changes that? No.
No.
Okay.
Unless there's a deed restriction on that unit.
Yeah.
That restricts the income,
Right.
the rent. Think about it.
Yeah.
You're gonna put an ADU, it's a rentable unit.
Well, I could see putting in incremental but I mean,
I mean, if.
a lot of times I don't want to do any improvements because it means I'm going to invite reassessment.
I think that the response to that is if you want to put a deed restriction on your property that would limit that to make it affordable, then you can get the reduction in.
Okay.
In taxes, but otherwise, why would we give you that? If you're not creating an affordable unit.
Yeah.
Right now, our ADU ordinance is a real boon to people who are affluent and can afford to do it and can afford to get an attorney and an architect. If we wanted to be more widely dispersed, including to moderate income homeowners, over the next few years, the town has to do some more work.
You're right. We have had interest from, young homeowners who are buying their first home, could afford to buy one in Montclair. Or who are exploring, creating ADUs, particularly if they want to bring in a family member.
Right.
Right. Larger family plan. So there's been a lot of talk.
Right. I think we had a really good process putting together the ordinance, and now we have to kind of regroup and put together the stuff that's ancillary to the ordinance to actually make it work.
Right.
Create an ADU ordinance, but you have to go through the meeting, right, Megan? Like,
If it's
you just-
affordable, these are just market.
It's a market,
Yeah, yes, if it's deed restricted.
Okay.
so the last thing I'll mention is that we were really impressed with the way that Seattle published pre-approved ADU plans for anyone to use, so they could just download the floor plan, they could look at it themselves, and they could know that that's already going to be approved to be built. And so that streamlines the process for both the homeowner, but also for the town. So that's good.
So if I pre-approved, it's already got building permits?
Yeah, it's like it meets the building code, the energy code, like all of that.
That was the original intent in the beginning when they had that ADU competition before they brought them on the school, was to have, right, Janice, like a couple of standard sizes.
Well,
based
there's
on
zoning compliant, but there's nothing that's going to, you still have to go and pull your permits, and get your permits.
But I felt that this is just what I was told by that it would make the permitting easier if it was approved once, then that same design could be, it would be as
Livingston? I don't know, I'm asking.
What they did was they came up with this design, and we have them in my office, of detached ADUs that meet our zoning requirement in terms of the dimensions. It all depends, of course, on where it's, you know, situated on the property. But it's if it's situated properly, it's zoning compliant. But you still have to pull all your building permits. There's nothing that's going to
Streamline.
yeah, avoid that process.
And those are the kind of things that if the town was committed to really pushing ADUs, or at least expediting them, then we would see if there was some way of expediting permits, some way of doing some work to assist in the development of these ADUs that again can be formulaic and not necessarily a one-off each time. So, but I think that's a long-term discussion. I think this is really good.
So when you gave your recommendations for ADUs, were you getting that from other communities? And if so, what were those?
Yeah, so I would say that most of the action has been on the West Coast, like Seattle, Portland, LA build a huge number of ADUs per year, like they're really leading the country on that. But it's starting to come to the East Coast more. So like Princeton also has an ADU ordinance, and just anecdotally, I can tell you that like I see a lot of ADUs being built in Princeton, and I think maybe that has to do with maybe their lower parking requirements for ADUs, stuff like that. But really, if you want like inspiration, I would look to the West Coast because they've been sort of incrementally changing their ordinances for like decades to really get the right.
They also have a very high homeless rate.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they probably need it more than some other places.
I think they also.
But don't you, I mean, didn't Vermont create a financing vehicle to
Yeah.
market, sort of credit?
We had a list of banks, basically banks that homeowners can go to get financing, along with terms and duration for the financing, and also contractors. Which was part of the recommendation. They kind of streamline the process by essentially creating a cheat sheet for a homeowner that's looking to build an ADU.
I already jumped ahead on your slides.
Okay, I'm a little nervous for this part now.
Your audience is supportive.
Okay.
Do it.
All right, I'm going to say the U word. So yes, upzoning. It's you probably heard of it by now. It's a hot topic in housing affordability. The basic idea of it is that when you allow higher density, you increase the overall supply of housing, which pushes overall cost down. Right, bigger supply, cost down. Upzoning works in a lot of cases. Places that have tried it have had good outcomes. We have a case study of Minneapolis. They've seen many positive outcomes from both allowing higher density and limiting parking requirements. This is taken from Pew Charitable Trust, and you can see that they outpaced the state of Minnesota in terms of increasing housing units, lower increase in average rent, and decreasing homelessness. So upzoning, there's many cases of this across the country. A particular sub-genre of upzoning that we're interested in is upzoning around transit stops. The reason... This is also proven to be very effective. So, for example, the city of Arlington, Virginia, which is near where Alina and I are from, they have found, they've reaped a lot of benefits just from allowing higher density within a quarter mile of DC metro stations. The reason for this is that it's very desirable to live near transit, and people who want to live near transit also may want to live in condos. They may be single people, young families, etc. And Arlington has found, since implementing this policy quite a few decades ago, that rents have become fairly affordable relative to the rest of the DC area, and they avoid tax hikes for single family property owners because people in higher density housing they pay taxes, but they also have less tax expenditures because they have less school children. So there's we're very interested in this, and of course you guys have 5 New Jersey transit stops. 6?
I keep getting corrected. I always thought it was 5.
What's the 6th one?
And there's Montclair State, Mountainside, Montclair, Watchung,
Walnut.
Okay, let's look at the next slide.
So sorry, guys, just a small correction. The Montclair State University
plug.
train stop is technically in the next municipality.
Which one?
So
No,
I
it's
think
not. No, it's not. It's actually in Montclair.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
I think the centroids, the GIS centroids is maybe not in Montclair because I only see 5 when I did
there's one,
this.
it's on, I used to live right next door to it, so it's on.
The Montclair State University one by the Yogi Berra Stadium. I think that one's like right on the border.
That's not the one I'm talking about.
Okay, well, we can just look at the next slide.
We have 6 if it's within a quarter of a mile.
Okay.
Okay.
So if I go over, because I wrote Montclair State, Upper Montclair, Watchung Bay, Walnut, and
You
Wilkes, the
guys
other one.
Oh my God, you're right, there's 6. I made this map and I thought it was 5. Okay.
It's right there,
You're right.
Near the entrance to most.
The entire time I thought it was 5.
Yeah.
But I did make this map, so.
So there's Montclair State and also Mount
Yeah,
Hebron.
so this should be Montclair.
That's Montclair State.
Okay.
It's on Mount Hebron Road.
Mountain Avenue.
Okay.
Mountain
Mountain
Avenue,
Upper
Upper
Montclair,
Montclair, Watchung, Walnut, and Day.
Okay, so,
Could I just say something? All of the apartments, at least on Bay Street, that are right there by the train station are really expensive.
Yeah.
They're not cheap. So
Yeah.
this concept of the rents being lower because they're by the train station.
No, the concept is to make create more supply.
Well, this is a perfect example.
Right.
The original density of Lackawanna Plaza was 470 units at 6 stores. Now, if you reduce the commercial and the retail, okay, and really go after density from that standpoint, because, you had the concern with the traffic and, all the other stuff that came along with the density, the requirement for the commercial and retail. But it's just an example, higher density. There could have been 470 units there, but then the commercial was outrageous even with that amount of residential. So would a developer say, okay, I'll take the density and back down on the commercial and the retail? That's a conversation to have, but we're having a problem with 300 units right now with that development. So there's a perfect, and there's almost 8 acres of property there that they wanted to, really put in a nice development. It started with 375,
right.
now it's down to 300, and God knows where it's gonna go from here. But just an example of increased density, yes, we'd have a difficult time allowing increased density. There's a perfect example right there. We walked away from additional density.
There are also scenes which was really striking to me because I had a discussion with someone in town. And they live, of course, in Upper Mountain Avenue and they have a beautiful home and they had kids in the district. And and I questioned her on this. She was talking about the fact that more kids would come into the district if, when we build more apartment complexes. And I said to her, are you telling me that you don't want kids who are apartment dwellers, whose parents are renting apartments to be in the school district? Because that's what it sounded like to me.
And actually, we've done, every couple of years, we reach out to the Board of Education. We get the number of school children. Got a very good, we've got local information. Very few children come from the apartments.
But the implication of that complaint is that if people are renters, then their kids are not good enough to go to our district.
I understand the implication, I'm just giving you the facts. Facts are wrong.
The facts generally, and I mean, you can take a look at what's happened in Bloomfield. As an example, I would say that the Bloomfield schools, even though you probably added about 4,000 or 5,000 units to Bloomfield, I don't think you've seen an incredible increase in the amount of students.
I mean, you can look more into Arlington if you want. It hasn't.
That's efficient, because that's efficient.
There's a really good case study of Arlington, Virginia that you can look at. And I think the general idea is people who buy these units, transit-oriented development, they're not They're not kid havers.
Yeah,
Right.
Or not yet.
yeah.
Well, it's been several decades at this point, yeah. I don't-
Generally, they want to get out once they do have.
If they decide to have kids, then they move to a
Yeah.
different location.
I think
Usually
that's
they
less
need a
the
bigger
idea.
unit.
Yeah, of course, it depends on like bedroom mix, so if it's gonna be all 3 and 4 bedroom apartments,
Right.
yeah, sure, you might get kids,
Yeah.
but, you know, and there is actually a great, study and like algorithm basically from Rutgers, from Professor Listigan.
Oh, yes.
Where you can just like figure out exactly how many school age
Oh,
children
God.
for development, and it's almost always way fewer than community members are concerned about.
And the other thing is, the age of Montclair residents is increasing. And more people would prefer to be in an apartment and sell their home. So.
Yeah, but it's got 5 bedrooms, and that means a lot more kids in the school system. We just have to outlaw 5-bedroom homes, and that'll really answer all the problems. One of the challenges with the Lackawanna is not just that it has a lot of units, whatever the number, 300, 375, 450, whatever the number, it's packed in a small area. One of the benefits of rethinking that upzoning, as you guys presented a few minutes ago, to go along all the transit stops is maybe you'll have 1,000 units, but you'll have them spread much more evenly across the town. So the immediate impact of people going to work and people, doing their shopping and whatever is not quite as intense. You have that density spread out. It's not quite the gentle density of ADUs, but it is, I think that what you guys were suggesting a few minutes ago, doing that transit development, it's like taking a big building and just laying it down. So now you're looking through all these corridors instead of jamming it all up into one corridor. So there's a real great advantage to doing that. And that Rutgers report, the Housing Commission presented that report to the council maybe 6 years ago or 7 years ago when that was done, and it didn't manage to move anybody at all. They still had the same attitude, members of that council at that time, even though there was a study that said it had very little impact. People just got to believe what they want to believe.
I know. I think not to take up too much more time, but it's like don't bring backs to a feelings fight. I just dropped in the chat. RPA recently did an analysis of locations within New York and New Jersey that are really prime for transit-oriented development. And so I would welcome anybody on the council to take a look at that report, and you'll really see that a lot of the stations in Montclair, including the one that I thought was in Little Falls, I'm sorry about that. If you look at them, many of them are very close to like what we would consider prime for upzoning.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Thank you.
And maybe the phrase upzoning is a little scary, but it could also just be spot zoning and a transit spot zoning. So you can, just lower the shock value of it. We're not doing this to the whole town. It's not going to become it's not going to become downtown Manhattan, but it is going to address some of the need over the next 5 years.
The lack of multifamily around Watchung and Upper Walnut and Upper Montclair, each of which are commercial areas, is just astounding. It's very rare to find, commercial shopping areas without a multifamily residential housing. It's just really unusual.
And people go get on the train, get off, can walk to their apartment, can walk to shopping. That really mitigates against cars.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of
So
desire.
there's so many.
I just want to point out, in all of our commercial districts, we do permit, around these train stations, we permit multifamily development in those commercial zones. So that might be the maps might need to be corrected a little bit.
Okay, they
I
probably
mean,
do, yeah.
density is 28 units per acre, I mean, in our
Okay.
commercial, our NC zones, so.
Oh, good, okay.
Janice,
Yes.
we could go back to the 2015 master plan. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's be mindful of time.
Yeah, and I'll say this quickly. Okay. That version of the master plan had a design of building around all 6 train stations. And there was a residential component of about 3,600 units. Wow. Okay. And there were versions of that. It was scaled up and scaled down. Do we want to go back and take a look at that? Because if you're upscaling, that master plan first version had that version of upscaling building around train stations.
It's been diluted over.
Oh, yes, about that. Okay, okay, but we've been there before.
Yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm sure you guys have thought about this, I've been thinking about this for a long time.
It all depends
Yeah.
upon who's sitting on the planning board.
Yeah.
who's accountable. Yeah. You don't have the political will.
I'm just the cartographer, so.
Next slide.
So yeah, anyway, but the point is that more than half, about 60% of land around Montclair train stations is not zoned for apartment.
Right.
And this figure should be higher, you're right, if neighborhood commercial, right, you can allow density, but it's not high. So this is just low hanging fruit. We think that probably C2 general business and light industrial around Walnut is prime for upzoning, as is, you pointed out, neighborhood commercial. And now we know it's already permitted, so.
It's already permitted.
There you go.
Always increase the number of units.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Dennis, isn't the height restriction 35 feet though?
Yes, it is.
You know, so how much multifamily are you gonna get with 35-foot height limit?
Yeah.
I mean, that's gonna be 2 stories, you know, that's
It's not a lot of units.
no.
So,
But we've had developers build them. We've had developers come in for approvals and then decide not to build them because it's not cost effective.
so maybe, yeah,
Can't get enough density.
increase the height of
Yeah.
apartment, or minimum.
Height limits.
But these
Height
are also
limits.
historic districts, that's the other thing.
So this is just the low hanging fruit. We know it's politically feasible to touch anything else, so we're just
Yeah.
showing you this.
It's like going back to our original master plan. Anyway. I think I'm going. Oh, I skipped one. There you go.
All right, so this is obviously the controversial part of our presentation, upsetting the parking minimums. But we recommend that Montclair reevaluate parking minimums for housing. So Montclair currently follows RSIS for parking minimums, the state standard. And we
It's
came across.
actually parking maximums. I sit on the RSIS board. Honestly, they're not a parking minimum.
Yeah, I actually did see that.
They're a parking maximum.
But my understanding is that most towns follow them as if they're minimums.
But to be correct, it's actually, you can go below.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a parking maximum. You can't require more than that. You can always require.
yeah.
So just, there.
And so we came across a study from the Rutgers Center for Real Estate that found that municipalities that follow those parking maximums, but treat them as minimums, often require more parking spots than what the average renter actually needs in terms of average car ownership rates. And so if you're requiring more parking spots than needed, that adds to the cost of building housing development. And so what the study found was that they estimated that the average renter is paying an additional $960 per year in rent due to excessive parking requirements. And so the point of this is that we're just trying to emphasize that there are ways to bring down the cost of housing by looking at this. And so yeah, we said that Montclair has the ability to go below the RSI numbers. And so Montclair has a lot of flexibility in how far it wants to go. I mean, there are many cities and towns throughout the country that have completely got rid of parking minimums, citywide. But what you could do is also reduce parking minimums, within a specified radius of transit stations to incentivize TOD. So that's one option to consider.
And you have to take a look at,
$160 per month is a lot of Uber rides.
and you haven't taken a look at the number of vehicles per household.
So I know that the Rutgers study did have that, like they through a survey, they found the average number of cars.
Because that would be interesting to know, to support, if you wanna, if we want to reduce parking minimum, really, you have to look at how many vehicles, what is the trend for vehicles per household?
Yeah, I don't know if we have that data for Montclair specifically, but definitely for New Jersey, I can get that and put that in the report.
Yeah, and just to jump in here, because that data is available, the percentage of, we can even go as low as census tracts in terms of households that do not report having a car. It's in the American Community Survey data. I'm actually working with it right now for a separate class. But yeah, that is available. And I will just say, as somebody who is a carless homeowner in Montclair, it is extremely doable and we should be doing more of it.
Next one.
Wrong way.
All right, so just some more suggestions to potentially kick around that could help the situation here with affordable housing. So resident community ownership, there are what are called TOPA and COPA policies. So basically,
Hope is a nightmare.
well, what about COPA? But anyway, for anyone who doesn't know, so these policies provide tenants living in multifamily buildings or community-based nonprofits with advance notice that landlords are selling the building, and then it gives them an opportunity to collectively purchase the building. And then in theory, this community-based nonprofit would maintain the affordability long-term or in perpetuity. So obviously the benefit here is that it could turn potential eviction, which often happens when landlords sell buildings, and displacement into an opportunity for tenants to become homeowners, and this helps close racial homeownership and wealth gaps. So this TOPA has been around for a really long time in Washington, D.C., and it has proved quite successful. And then recently, San Francisco passed a COPA ordinance. So these are just places to look there.
Do you need to pass an ordinance to allow this, or can they do this on their own? Seems to me the tenants wanted to purchase a building.
It's the advanced notification though.
I think it's kind of like getting the
If they
first
don't
dibs.
know about it, then how are they gonna be able to raise capital to be able to do that?
So the policy is like requiring them to give like first dibs and so. That'll be the.
Tenants aren't required to hardly know anything in this town. The owners are required. So if someone wants to build something or redevelop something next to an apartment building, the owner of the apartment building is required to be informed, but the tenants aren't.
Right.
That's really up to the discretion of the owner. So.
Next. So other ideas for renter protections. So in the Pacific Northwest, something that's been popular lately are what are called renter relocation ordinances. So these force landlords to pay renters relocation assistance if they serve them a no-cost eviction or another enumerated triggering event. So obviously this disincentivizes landlords from displacing lower income tenants because then they have to pay this extra money. So then something that Los Angeles has recently done that I thought was innovative is called a rent escrow account program, or REAP. And this ties together habitability and code enforcement with rent negotiations. So basically tenants are given a rent reduction of a certain percentage depending on the nature and severity of the violation in habitability. And then so tenants can then pay the reduced rent either to the landlord or into an escrow account managed by the housing department. So again, just kind of a protection to renters to consider than other places in the country.
We have something like that in our rent control ordinance. It's all about the reduction in service. Provision rent control ordinance. So if there is a reduction based on lack of maintenance, significantly, whatever the case is, and the tenant can file a complaint, they can basically get a reduction in services. Now, people will come to the board because now the landlord doesn't want to move snow. So we've got some wacky things that come before us. Okay, but we do have a provision in our ordinance for the reduction of service. And the tenant can bring that to court.
And that's only for like the rent control.
Yeah.
Right. Next.
And we knew that you guys wanted to look at the potential of a building affordable housing on church-owned land. This is something that's kind of new. I mean, obviously, the church, many churches have had a mission of providing housing, but the idea of using legislation and ordinances to help initiate that is, something that's only happened in like the past few years. So first we looked at what were major barriers to building affordable housing on religious property. Many of them are just the same barriers that prevent affordable housing in general. So cost from delayed applications. A lot of churches think they have, think they know what they need to build affordable housing. You just got to build the building. You don't realize all the loopholes, or not loopholes, but all like the, red tape they have to go through, and they contact the developer to do that. Maybe the developer has never built affordable before, and they run away scared because they see what they have to do, and they leave. They leave helping their church. There's a lot of local resistance, oftentimes around historic preservation. So, there might be a lot of neighborhoods and neighbors who say, this church has been here for since, Montclair was created, and the church will often say, it's great, but we used to have attendances of like 1,000 people. And now on Sunday we get 40, but we're still, expected to maintain this. And so, but that's a problem that a lot of churches face. Just a lack of capacity, and then zoning. A lot of churches are on property that is zoned for single family. I think Union Congregation in Montclair is in single family. So if Union Congregation wanted to build affordable housing, well, they're in a single family zone district, and so that'd be very difficult for them. And so there's this movement, they're called YIGBs, that stands for Yes in God's Backyard. And they've started to, they've started to identify solutions. And many of these solutions are like solutions we've talked about before, but specifically targeted for religious institutions. So in Washington State, they signed a bill in 2019, and it offered density bonuses to affordable units specifically built on property owned or being rehabilitated by religious organizations. And then California last fall signed a statewide law that gave religious organizations a use by right to build affordable housing units on property owned by them with reduced parking minimums. And so they both incentivize more building, and they streamline the building, making it easier for religious organizations to do so. And then on a federal level, Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio just last month proposed what he called the YIGBY Act, which the act, isn't that, comprehensive to like the local needs, and that, a lot of land use is controlled by the states or by the counties or by the municipalities. But what this would do was it would provide technical assistance and grants to municipalities and ROs that build AH or have adopted similar ordinances. So if Montclair were to adopt an ordinance like those found in Washington State or California, and this bill were to be passed, Montclair might be able to be one of the first ones to access these grants. And outside of municipal or government actions, there are other nonprofits that provide capital and technical assistance. And just two examples are Enterprise Community Partners and LISC.
So what was the one that deals with grants?
So that's just been proposed. It's not happened yet.
Senator Brown, Sherrod Brown?
Yes, and Sherrod Brown of Ohio. He proposed it last month. Again, with Congress, you never know.
Right.
Maybe this passes through easily, or maybe somebody decides to wage a crusade and it never sees the light of day.
Forget about Congress.
But I figured it was worth mentioning because this is so new.
Enterprise, and I lecture for Enterprise's programs. Enterprise has I've lectured down in Baltimore and Maryland. They're also very active in New York. They have substantial backing from Wells Fargo Bank to provide economic incentives to people who attend, who participate in their programs. I find it, I know I'm looking at one project in Baltimore now for them that Bank of America is looking to finance. It would be tax credit, about 300 units. The enterprise, I've spoken to people at enterprise. They don't have a very large program in New Jersey, but I'm trying to see if we can get some assistance for their New York group.
Harold?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that it might not be a good idea to hold your breath until waiting for Congress to pass Senator Brown's legislation, but a number of mainline church organizations, Presbyterians, Catholic, social justice, evangelical Lutherans, along with Enterprise and others, have supported this. And a lot of these places also have funds. I know the Lutherans do, the Presbyterians do, where they do loans for housing development. So I think this is a great thing. As you know, I've been pushing for it. And there's a lot of activity in New York, in New Jersey, and other states around this. So I think we can be ahead of the curve if we start really thinking about this. And we got a lot of churches in Montclair.
We do.
Yeah.
Beautiful and
Spread
spread throughout
last
the town.
month's meeting, they're not working together. You know, a lot of their projects was too small. When some of these developers that would want to be more big, don't communicate with each other or work together in order to make it into a bigger project that's worthwhile.
Interesting.
So yeah, so what they have what to do on their end.
Okay, so in looking at how the township can address affordability, we looked at two municipally owned parcels. First parcel is located in Wildwood Ave in the First Ward. It's been vacant for decades, currently used as a staging area, and current use isn't its best use. So if we go on to the next slide, and give you a bit of context. It's mainly just vacant, fenced with dumpsters. So we have a sign in the back, so like access and also the fronts. And the site's currently in the R1 zone. It's usually a single family and duplexes. So if we go to the next one, more context, we pointed, these are houses like right next to it on opposite sides, duplexes. And going on to the next sheet, question we asked was R1 zone, really? So we looked at within the block radius, 18 units observed. We saw 7 duplexes. So R1 zone, 35-foot height, 2.5 story, 25-foot front yard. Of course, parking down in the front, 6 to 10-foot side yard setbacks. And going on to the next one, this is kind of our envisioning what we think the site could be. We're suggesting 6 two-family homes. It follows all the requirements for an R1 zone, but 2-family instead of 1 family. And then next slide over kind of just hints or shows what that could look like, essentially, following the requirements and also context.
This is the Wildwood that we had talked about back in 2010.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
and we also came up with the idea of 2-family
Right.
townhouses.
This is right by the park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the environmentalists went crazy in town, everybody went crazy.
It's mostly the Wildwood Avenue neighborhood, the people who lived on that street.
It's surprising
But
because
the
we did a nice little walk around and so we saw 2 mailboxes, 2 doors,
Yeah,
one in
a lot
front,
of
one in the
those are
back.
2-family, they're not just 1 family.
Yes, that's what we're hinting, that this isn't out of the norm in relation to what's going on in the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool change.
Right.
Yeah.
Next,
The environmental.
That's a no-brainer.
The environmentalists saw it as a park, that it was a green area. That was their argument.
Extend the literal.
The town is using it for garbage.
That's when I was the chair of the housing department, and I'm quoted in the newspaper by saying it's a dump. That's what it is, it's a dump. If it's a park, then go out and take a lounge chair and sit out there, but nobody's doing that because it's a dump.
Well, they use it tree staging, but, okay, you know, it's just one of these things they say they gotta
I
have.
mean, and in this proposal, if we go back to the site plan, we're kind of still giving that space. We didn't take the full site,
That
so
could
that,
still be used.
exactly, so that could satisfy that argument.
It's just, yeah, so hashing, it's actually much deeper than that.
Yeah.
And I think we should acquire the adjoining piece, but that's.
But there were lots of
That big piece.
fears about what this meant. And there was a lot of really nasty remarks like keep affordable housing in the fourth ward because that's where the buses could take you to Willowbrook Mall, which is where affordable housing people work.
I mean, a lot of this, and I mean, we're gonna mention in the report, at least in terms of ADUs, it could just be educating the community. It could just, they don't know what affordable is or could be, and it could just be that negative connotation.
With David Trout and all sorts of people trying to do that.
I mean, if we're going to build it, we could probably give it priority to town employees.
We mentioned that too.
Okay.
I mean, would you rather have your teachers, assistants living in town and
60 to 80% of area median income is a municipal worker, or is a teacher starting in a Montclair school district.
right?
So, I mean, I don't know if people understand that, but that's what that income is.
I remember because I was on that panel and I gave an example because one of the most virulent individuals, they're now deceased, may God rest their souls, but they were absolutely opposed to it, were professors at Montclair State. So I gave a sense of what they were making. And I gave them, I didn't mention their names, but I gave them as an example. And I said, this is an affordable person.
Yeah.
Okay, we only have 15 minutes.
Otherwise, this will be quick.
Go ahead.
So, New Street, located in the fourth ward, it's been part of the redevelopment plan. It's been demolished, the site that's been vacant, demolished in 2004, vacant for 20 years, so fence, current use, not the best use. Going on to the next slide, as mentioned, it's part of the redevelopment plan. And this, so this is, context of what it looks like today, vacant, fenced. And then next slide shows context of what's currently on New Street. 2-family, 1-family, 3-family, even apartment buildings. And then next slide kind of shows our current zoning. I think it's RA? Very similar to R1 family zone, 35-foot high, 2.5-story, 25 front yards, 6 to 10 side yards. And this is what essentially we're going to be proposing.
It permits 2-family houses, RAs. I think it's 2-family.
I mean, with the height of 35, I mean,
Maybe all the big apartments are.
what we're recommending is 3-family home.
3-family, okay.
So it's the only deviation from that zoning is no 25-foot front yard because no one really in that block has 25-foot front yard. 3-family, kind of in line with what's currently going on there, and then there's still parking in the back. And
100% affordable, right?
Yep. And then next slide kind of just shows what that could look like within the context of the site.
It actually fits right in with the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It actually looks like what's being built on that street right now.
Yeah.
Where we kind of show the context first, leading up to it.
All right.
And then after that's just our intro, which we
Oh,
did.
The most important part.
Well, we only thought we had 20 minutes.
Yeah. We timed it initially, we nailed it right at 22.
Yeah. So we have Alina and James and Alex. And Lauren, oh, yep, and Marla and Gabriel.
And she can be here, because
Passover.
Essence.
Okay.
Will we get these slides?
Yeah, they're gonna be on the website as well.
Good.
It's a high volume, there's a lot of bytes in this PowerPoint
Yes.
presentation, so I'll have to. That's it.
And let me send you a new one where it's not inclusionary zone in, it's zone in. Absolutely, that's my bad.
You can- But thank you very much.
We would have the capability of upgrading it with new data. So how does it work with the tools then?
So, I'll talk a little bit about that. I have like an Excel document, it's like the coding in it. And I use data from the ACS, 5-year data. I wouldn't like necessarily do like 2023 because the 5-year data collects data over 5 years. You'd be overlapping 4 years. Any difference you see isn't going to really give you a clear picture. But if like 5 years down the line, or you want to compare it to like a different point, you would. I'll send you specifically what codes I use, but you just paste those numbers in, and so it would. You would paste in how many, what the rents, how many, I'm trying to think, because I don't have it in front of me. And it's late. What the households were, and then compare it to what the rents are, and basically Excel does its thing, and it produces, the difference and the chart.
Very good.
Yeah.
Updated information.
And of course, it's like an estimate based on an estimate. So it's not like a precise number. It's not like, oh, we have to build 1,259 and we're done. It could be more, it could be less, but I think that figure is large enough that, it's worth considering. Right?
Harold, we have a question?
I just wanted to ask, included with that spreadsheet, will you have a tutorial how to use it?
Yeah, I can write something up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that would be very helpful.
Yeah. Well, I got it from one of my own professors. I'll probably,
Does he have a handlebar mustache?
he does have a mustache though.
But you know Eric Seymour, don't you, Harold?
Yeah, I know Eric, yeah.
I think since we have some public here, we might want an opportunity for some public
Oh,
comment. on it.
yeah.
Hey, thank you guys.
Yes,
And
thank you so much.
It was fabulous.
So told from the beginning, we're starting on our 2025 housing plan. This is a really good information base to work with, and hopefully we'll be able to integrate it all into our recommendations. But we have several members of the public here. If anybody has any comments, questions, and I'd like to get a picture before everybody leaves. I think this is an exciting project. Come on up so we can hear you on the microphone. We're recording this meeting.
Well, we definitely have something else to say, but if you want to comment on this, I agree with you. Montclair should absolutely get rid of its parking minimums altogether. 100%. Plenty of parking spaces, we just need to utilize them more. Like I said, I don't know if you had the figure up there of like a average cost of parking, right?
Yeah, we had an estimate.
$20,000 to $50,000 per building, right? So when we got parking garages and stuff, we got one parking garage and parking. So
Yeah.
we just need to manage it better. Certainly help report the latest study after study after study. And this one's fabulous. I agree with 99.9% of everything. So, good stuff.
So this is Jason Gleason from he's the executive director of the Montclair Center bid.
The business downtown.
Oh, cool.
Or it should be more dense. That's one of the comments. We have other stuff to say, but
Yeah.
General comment.
general comments.
Statements made.
I'm sure, come on.
I'm Karen Mortensen. I'm the one on housing.
Come on up.
I'll come up so we can. Sure. Do you want us to go by the screen? Do you want the?
So we're
screen?
going to take a picture.
Oh, got it, yeah.
Maybe I should, sure.
Well, why don't you take a picture with all the students so that they don't have to listen?
Right.
I can take that.
Just-
You don't have to- this is actually. Take a picture. Members of the housing commission, we're here. Why don't you go up? Let's get a picture of the housing commission institutes with this in the background. Okay? And we'll post it on the website.
Make sure Harold's in it.
And they should put their Christina.
Christina.
Her camera.
Okay, I can't get everyone in a line, so some of you need to be down
In the
here.
front?
Yeah. I'll just toss it.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll just.
Okay.
Let's see.
This is an awkward picture.
Let's say. Great smiles, great background.
Okay. Cheese.
Janice, you wanna go in
No,
there?
no, I'm okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, can I just say too,
Oh, I'm so sorry.
we've done studios before, we know other students who've done studios before, and oftentimes we like present and, we get thanked. But sometimes it feels like, oh, maybe, nobody's listening, we're just kind of going through this exercise. This blew me away with, I mean, I knew you guys cared and, it's your town, but, just thank you for the engagement, because like, this is like the experience that we're hoping to pull from the studio, and this would clear the bar by.
Congratulations. Good job.
We won't be doing this until it's fall, right? Thank you.
That was awesome. All right.
Yep.
I believe they're the only two, they want to make a statement, right?
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, will I join you up here?
I will join you up here, absolutely.
Okay, again, hi, my name is Kira. I'm from Monarch Housing Associates. We are working here in the community. We have helped the community create a strategic plan to.
No, you're in front of the camera.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you are.
I'm in front of the camera, okay.
Okay, we worked with a bunch of stakeholders in the community to put together a strategic plan to end unsheltered homelessness in Montclair. That's really what Monarch does. We kind of work in two areas. One of them is in affordable housing, so we provide technical assistance to affordable housing developers throughout the process. We work across the state of New Jersey. Kind of one half of our work. The other half is we are consultants for communities across the state who are engaging in homeless planning. So that means basically those who are managing funding, whether they get it from HUD or other programs at different levels of government. We help them kind of figure out how are they going to structure their programs and distribute their funds and make sure that the services that people who are experiencing homelessness get are the highest level that they can be. So in that capacity, we're working with the township to now implement this plan that we created. If you guys want to read it, I can send you an email with it, or Janet, if you can forward it.
Yes.
Yeah, so there are a couple of realms that we're working in with the plan. And one of the most crucial of those is access to housing, right? We really want to push for more accessibility of housing in Montclair, existing housing especially, but also in the creation of new housing. And in that vein, Jason is going to help make the case for creating a new policy to be more inclusionary or, inclusive of people who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness in Montclair. Let me let you take.
Hi. Again, I'm Jason Gleason. I'm the director of Montclair Center Business Improvement District. This is not typically the realm you would see me in here, right, dealing with these issues, but I have to say it's been such a pleasure to work with. I think it's about 23 different organizations that sit on the Montclair Unhoused Coalition. For the last 3 years, we've been engaged in this work, not only working with Monarch, Kira and Thaisa and others in creating the strategic plan, but now we're actually in action and implementation, which is really fabulous. So I'm going to stick to the script so I don't take up too much of your time. I'll go real quick here. Essentially, the number of households that are experiencing sheltered and unsheltered homelessness in Montclair is too high. It's actually incredibly high. I believe we're third in Essex County, which Wow. As the township works to implement its plan to end homelessness, support is needed to ensure adequate housing options are made available. There's tremendous stigma associated with homelessness. Makes it very difficult for households to access housing opportunities. The households experience challenges with accessing housing due to backgrounds that may encompass mental health needs, criminal background, limited income, use of voucher programs, credit history, and other items. These various issues, along with the stigma of homelessness in general, present barriers to households seeking available units that are open on the market. As part of the plan to end homelessness in Montclair, the community will need to build units dedicated to people experiencing homelessness. And for most affordable housing developers, creating housing dedicated to people experiencing homelessness is not a high priority for the same reasons used by private market, locking these households out of housing opportunities. The exceptions are nonprofit and mission-aligned developers, obviously, that target development for vulnerable populations, including households experiencing homelessness. So, to ensure an adequate number of units dedicated to people experiencing homelessness are created, we're asking for a homeless preference of 5% of units created in new developments with 20 units or more. I'm sure you guys know because it's across here, but our inclusionary zoning ordinance already mandates 20% of the units in buildings with 5 units or more must be affordable, right? And then, I guess you guys make this up in here or take your recommendation or not. But it could be 5% out of that 20, 5% on top. If you guys want to slice and dice it, but we think that it's absolutely necessary. The preference should not significantly impact the ability to create affordable housing for other vulnerable populations. Instead, it will ensure that a portion of units are created for individuals experiencing homelessness. The goal is to create integrated communities as well. As such, our preference would be to have dedicated units within the larger affordable housing buildings, as opposed to developing 1 or 2 projects that are just 100% dedicated to people experiencing homelessness. There is an existing integrated system for identifying people experiencing homelessness, which is coordinated entry. So any dedicated units that are created can plug into the existing process to identify and verify eligible tenants without placing any undue burden on the developer or the property manager. This process is approved by federal government for special needs housing and does not violate any fair housing laws. The Unhoused Montclair Coalition is working to ensure all people experiencing homelessness are connected to support services appropriate for stabilization. As such, dedicated homeless units will have attached supportive services for the households referred for residency. Within the community, there's a network of strong service providers that can cover service needs, but people need connection to physical permanent housing units that can be provided through this process. That's it. That's all she wrote. Questions, comments, concerns? I'm happy to.
Jason and Kira, can you send me that document?
Sure.
So that I have it for my records in 10 minutes?
Certainly.
And
Yes.
then Harold has a question. I think that we should have it on top. So,
yeah.
Yes.
So I can't see you guys, but I think you're out of my peripheral vision. There you go. I see you.
Yes, you stand back there.
You see, we have a sort of podium. So, hello. I totally agree with you guys. The one concern I have, and that we have here on the Housing Commission, and really it's a townwide issue. Should we have a 5% set aside, not on top of the 20%, but integrated within the 20% affordable, right? I think that's what you said. Well, what about for people with physical needs, handicaps? What about for people who are seniors and lower income, who are, I'm not talking about seniors who can afford to build an ADU, but who are lower income and need senior housing? What about a set aside for half a dozen other special groups? My concern is always this becomes a battle of goods because they're all deserving and they all need it. And so in the strategic plan that you've produced, and I may have seen an earlier version, I wonder, do you deal with the issue of how to slice and dice? What group has is more deserving or less? I mean, if you have 20% in, are there 5% of the 20%, or is it 5%, and then another 5, another 5, another 5 for the different groups? How do you trade these different goods?
So the defining characteristic of people who are experiencing homelessness is that they do not have a home. And there are,
By definition.
right.
Yeah, by definition.
So there are a number of barriers to entry for housing that this particular group of people experience that I don't want to say other groups don't experience, but there are particular and explicit barriers that are presented to people who are experiencing homelessness. And that is why we're asking for a specific set aside for people experiencing homelessness.
I agree with you. I agree with what you just said, but try to find an apartment with, if you're wheelchair bound, you know? And so I think that in a town where, you know, we have a housing commission, a planning board, we have, you know, zoning, we have council, each constituency has a voice. And I think that very often we start battling each other. And I think that you could strengthen the proposal that you have if you start thinking about the community as comprehensive in nature, that includes the unhoused, that includes handicap, that includes low moderate income or low income seniors and veterans and all sorts of, because we've had council members that said we need to put 5% aside for veterans. Now there's overlaps in a lot of these things, but it's a weakness in all these plans when you don't start to think about how it fits into all these other things.
I think this is, I'm Lori Henninger, and I think those are incredibly justified concerns. I think there's two things, in my mind, there are two things. One is we have to start somewhere. And this group specifically was talking about people who are probably the most vulnerable in the community. Now, we could argue that somebody that has a motility issue is vulnerable, can be vulnerable, but these are people that are living in the freezing cold on the streets and are probably very seriously at risk of dying. The second thing I would say is that if there is a way, because the gentleman who is working on senior housing or on housing for veterans is part of this group that we've been working with. And if there is a way to pool these groups together so that we are working together instead of fighting at one another and lifting up the overall number, that would be a great strategy forward. This group in particular was concerned about people that were out on the street at risk of freezing to death. We started with Code Blue because Code Blue in Essex County wasn't working. And so this group has made sure that people in Montclair now have a place to go through MESH. And we've made some really good strides. I mean, and I think all of what you said is valid, but I do think there are ways around it.
Oh, well, that's great, because it's the ways around it that are really important. Absolutely. There has to be an articulated way to say, yeah, we recognize all these other people and we recognize the challenge, and how do we integrate all these different needs in a way that doesn't kick anyone out, but that does prioritize, you know, immediate needs over long-term needs. You know, totally agree. It just has to be clearly articulated, and it has to be not just that there is a need, but here's a strategy moving forward on how to address these, you know, overlapping needs comprehensively.
This group has managed to bring together EMS, the police department, town council, the business improvement district. any number of nonprofits. Who else? The funders in the community.
Salvation Army.
So we have done a lot of work in terms of building bridges between groups that I think has not been done before. And if we can, starting there, there's no limit to the possibility of collaborative work.
I agree, and
I agree with you, and I'm just encouraging that because it is so, so much of what we do in this world is a competition for goods as opposed to a bad thing versus a good thing. And this is such a great opportunity because you made, thanks guys, you made such an important contribution with the strategy. But it's so easy to say, well, but what about us? And what about us? And what about us? Thank you, James.
Bye, James.
Sorry to take you.
Thank you.
Certainly, Harold, I tend to agree with your sentiment as well. This group, though, we are here to represent and advocate for the unhoused, specifically. Also, within the subset of people who are unhoused, you will have lots of people with disabilities, lots of people who are veterans, lots of people, right? So being unhoused is I guess it's a condition that can affect, well, just about everybody in the population, right? So that's what we're here to.
Disability, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
Totally. I understand. I understand what you're saying.
I think as we.
You can explain it better to the Supreme Court the other day.
Yes.
As we work forward on formulating our policy for affordable housing in our new housing plan, clearly I think we have to come up with mechanisms to address this. And this is I'm glad we're having this conversation. I'm glad that you came forward because we'll listen to you and come up with some ideas on how we can integrate this and address it.
Great. Thank you guys very, very much for your time.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add one more thing to that. I took a class on LIHTC, the low income housing tax credit. That is actually, it's not a requirement, but it's like a potential right. I mean, within that, the 5% is, if you want LIHTC credit, it is a potential requirement kind of to get the credit. But from developers I've talked to, I know that they're a little frustrated with it, only in that it can be difficult to fill that unit because a lot of people who might be homeless might not be able to have like responsibility immediately to take on an apartment. And so they often fill it with near homeless, which counts. So it's just like a consideration too of like expanding that, I guess, that. So you're capturing people before they become homeless.
I'm hoping that because we have such an active organization and structure that when it comes time, when we do create these units, we'll have a structure in place where we can identify a pool. Not every unit's going to be appropriate for every homeless person. So we'll have a structure in place.
So we already do have a prioritization list within the county. The county's continuing Montclair has a list of people who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness right now, ranked based on vulnerability, ready to be placed in units available. And part of the work that we're doing is making sure that services and supports are integrated with the units that are going to be created.
My other question is there a way you can talk to the homeless in Montclair? A county-based initiative. If we're not taking county funds or federal funds,
you can have a preference. You can't make it exclusive as the initiative. But I think that there are ways to work within it to create. We've been talking to the system like administrators, and we'll see what we can figure out. Because I know there's a lot of demand to live in Montclair because of all the resources that it has to offer.
Right. Exactly.
And great service organizations.
And again, right. And the whole part of the thing, we're trying to preserve like historic diversity and by having it as a local preference for most of our affordable housing initiatives, to have the judge say we can have a local it's important to make a meeting that restores diversity. So I think we had it, and we don't want to lose it. And that was one of the mechanisms that was approved to address displacement in gender education. It's a drop in the bucket.
Janice, can you speak up just a little bit? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Now I can hear you.
Okay. Just talking about, I forgot what I was saying. It's getting late. We're trying to build local
Janice,
preference for this.
using local preferences.
Yeah.
Is used for
Yeah.
people within town.
And local preference for any, to see if we can use that for a homeless initiative, housing the homeless locally. So it depends. Okay.
Well, the new A4S50 might actually.
I guess I have to read the whole thing.
Yeah.
Transitional housing is a new category that's allowed to.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Just thank you so much.
Very interesting.
All right, so
I'm sorry, which step,
Which one?
the new statute?
The eight. Well,
Mount Laurel.
Oh, the new map.
I have a lot of homework to do.
Harold just, he sent an email about what
Yes.
on the tenants,
Right.
there's a lot of good information in there.
Yeah, I appreciate the email, Harold. I'm gonna
Yes,
watch
thank you,
that. I'm
Harold.
gonna watch that video. Megan is actually teaching a class.
Oh,
I'll be attending the class.
Where? The Affordable Housing Professionals of New Jersey is starting,
It's in May.
it's in May, yes, but it's.
But
It's
it's specific to that.
It's specific to Bill, and on administration for people who are administering waiting lists and setting pricing and that sort of stuff. Honestly, there's a lot of questions.
Exactly.
And I know everyone sort of has a different opinion, so really this first.
I just look at this timeline. I just printed this one page from that presentation, the timeline, which is scary.
Yes.
You know, you get the numbers on October 30th,
Okay.
and you have to adopt the numbers by January 31st. And then you have to have your plan filed by June 30th.
I read the summary. That's it. That's the bill.
But it does also.
Hey guys,
say
come
that
back.
Push.
Yes, yes.
The state of New staff. Are you still like in your seat? Okay.
Thank you.
all right, so I have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Next meeting, wait a minute. Could we put on, I'm sorry, could we put on next month's agenda to debrief from this report that we just got so it doesn't disappear into the electricity?
And especially with the new council.
And on this week, in this month's agenda, we also included an update on the faith-based stuff. So if we could just move that to next
Good idea, we
agenda.
will. I'm gonna, okay?
Okay, sorry.
Thank you all
And
for.
Christina, before you go, I'm without a car and quite happy.
It's doable, everybody.
You need a ride home?
Have a good night, guys. Take it easy.
Good night.